The Rings of Power producers apparently suddenly have a problem with people who are saying that Rings of Power is only vaguely connected to Tolkien's materials. And this is coming from a large part of the fan base because, as you can see, this is the first teaser trailer that they released for Rings of Power, which was on Prime Video, and it is completely decimated on YouTube. This is the official trailer released officially by Amazon, and it got completely stomped by the fan base. And now suddenly the producers, after months and months of saying all of these things where they derived, deviated from Tolkien and everything else, suddenly they take great offense to people saying that they are only vaguely connected. The Lord of the Rings of Power is deeply rooted in Tolkien mythology, creators say. Really? Well, what about all of these things that you guys have been saying over the past few months that go completely against that completely speak against that? The driving question behind the production, this was coming from the first interview that they really did for this show. Can we come up, and this is coming from the producers, can we come up with a novel Tolkien never wrote and do it as the mega event series that could only happen now? This was in the Vanity Fair article that they've released. This was our first really taste of the Rings of Power show, and as soon as I saw this quote, I knew this show was going to be a disaster. I knew this show had no intentions of honoring Tolkien or being faithful to him or his material. This quote right here, it told me everything I needed to know about Rings of Power, but it gets even worse. So you had things like the producer for the show saying things like this as well. It only felt natural to us that an adaptation of Tolkien's work would reflect what the world actually looks like. Tolkien is for everyone. His stories are about his fictional races doing their best work when they leave the isolation of their own cultures and come together. And continued on. Obviously, there was going to be push and backlash, but the question is from whom? Who are these people that feel so threatened or disgusted by the idea that an elf is black, or Latino, or Asian? Which, by the way, is such a silly question in itself. An elf, whether an elf is black, Latino, or Asian. They're not any of those things because they're elves. But anyway, the thing that I really want to focus on here is this. It felt only natural to us that an adaptation of Tolkien's work. It doesn't matter what your interpretations or what felt natural to you is. This goes completely against what Peter Jackson had as his personal creed for taking on Lord of the Rings. He had no interest of injecting any of his own politics or worldviews or anything like that into the story. He wanted to make a story that was faithful to Tolkien. And now you also have things like them talking about the Harfoots and the hobbits, and how Harfoots apparently aren't hobbits, but they're just migratory, wandering hobbits or people, and they're just Harfoots. That's all that they are. Which none of that is accurate either. And apparently they didn't ever read Lord of the Rings because all of that is like on page 3 or something like that of Fellowship of the Ring. So, once again, apparently they're taking great offense to people saying that it is only vaguely connected. The Lord of the Rings of Power showrunners addressed criticisms that the show is only vaguely connected to Tolkien's writings. This is what they had to say. Payne and McKay recently addressed the criticisms at the Television Critics Association's semi-annual press tour when a reporter called The Rings of Power only vaguely connected to Tolkien's writings compared to Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy, which was based on actual printed materials. Patrick McKay replied,
I just want to sort of quibble with the vaguely connected. We don't feel that way. We feel like deep roots of the show are in the books and in Tolkien.
Which is not the case at all. Look at situations like the Harfoots. Look at all these different things that show that is completely false.
And if we didn't feel that way, we'd all be terrified to sit up here.
Bullshit. No, you wouldn't.
We feel that this story isn't ours. It's a story we're stewarding that was here before us and was waiting those books to be on Earth.
I love how they use all of these kind of like keywords, these buzzwords of that are kind of like Tolkienian.
We don't feel vaguely connected. We feel deeply, deeply connected to these folks and work every day to even be closer connected. That's really how we think about it.
And I'm just going to say to all of that, bullshit. None of that is correct. None of that is true. And we have months and months of things that go directly against this entire quote here, but that's exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to save the sinking ship, and it's not going to happen. As you can see here, fans have said no. Fans have rejected this, and because they want to hold Tolkien's work that is being done by other creators to a higher standard, which is not a bad thing. With that being said, let me know what you think about all of this in the comments below. Leave a like, subscribe. I'd appreciate that a lot, and I'll talk to you all in another video very soon.